Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of BitNote with David Collins. We'll be playing some great video game music from old and new games. Have a listen and hope you enjoy. Hey again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of BitNote. So I'm going to start the show off with a track from an old game I loved playing as a kid. You know, these days sometimes, back in the early days of video games, they made video games with a lot of different subjects, and sometimes the odd one would just come really fun and really popular, even if it was based on something that you weren't really that interested in. For this example, I'm going to play you a game called Beach Volley. It is a video game where, unsurprisingly, you play beach volleyball, and it is from the Amiga and released in 1989. Now, the game was actually a lot of fun. I kind of enjoyed it. It had good graphics, kind of whimsical storyline, little transitions, and of course the music was very, very good. In fact, when I was researching the music for this and the composer, I found out that he was actually involved in the Eurovision Song Contest. Kind of linked up that. I'll give you a bit more details in a bit, but I think right now I'll just play you with the title track of the video game. It is one that I enjoy a lot. It's called Bahamas after one of the levels in the game, but it kind of plays over the intro, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to play you now Bahamas from the video game Beach Volleyball. It was composed by Jean Baudlot, and it is from Beach Volleyball by Delphine Software. Have a listen and hope you enjoy. And that was a very nice bit of energetic music that really gets you started into the game. Like I said, I just always liked the music from this game, and that music you just heard played over the nice background where, as you saw, beach volleyball has scrolled gently onto the screen, and we got some nice comic-style transitions of, people playing volleyball and then suddenly being offered a contract to go on a great big world-spanning volleyball tournament. And that was the game. Each time in the game, you'd have a quick transition which would go to one city or the other, such as little animation where you went to New York and maybe one of your guys would accidentally fly into the mouth of the Statue of Liberty, or one involving going to London, or all this sort of nice stuff. And each time you go to this country and play this great game of volleyball and try to defeat the team. And if you won, you went on to the next stage. If you lost the game and had to start the whole thing all over again. So, as I said, it was a fun game. It was a pretty good hit on the Amiga. And the music, as I said, was composed by Jean Baudlot. Or Baudlot, I'm not quite sure how it's pronounced in French or something. He's a French music composer and actually has quite a wide career, video games being only part of it. Essentially, he became a composer a lot in the 70s, and towards the end of the 70s, he ended up getting involved in Delphine Records, which is a record label, and composed a lot of songs for that. During that period of time, in 1979, he actually represented Monaco in the Eurovision Song Contest under the pseudonym Laurent Wagner, and he came 12th, so that's pretty damn good. But then he continued on working in Delphine Records, and of course, if you're into your video games, the word Delphine might ring a bell. And yes, of course, Delphine Records ended up spawning Delphine Software International. And it was with Delphine Software International that a lot of video games got developed, and of course Jean Baudlot ended up composing a lot of music for a lot of classic video games. He composed music for Bad Dudes, which is a game that constantly gets referenced, although I've never actually played it. There's this meme on the internet, are you a bad enough dude to rescue the president? And I haven't played it, so apparently I'm not bad enough doomed, which is good, because I don't want to be too bad, because being bad isn't always good. He also made the music for Future Wars, which I haven't quite finished yet. It was also by Delphine Software. And of course Flashback, which was also by Delphine Software, a classic video game that controlled a lot like the Prince of Persia, but took place in a jungle and all this cool stuff for it. Anyway, Beach Volley itself was developed by Ocean France, and I think it was one of Ocean's earliest games. But I mean, like, Ocean, if you liked video games, especially Amiga video games in the early 90s, you freaking loved Ocean. You'd see that great big lovely blue logo, and then you just wait patiently hoping to be bamboozled with a fantastic great video game and video game experiences, and Beach Volley was definitely a great game to play it off. Alright, since Jean Baudlot's work on video game music, he did a bit more game music, and then since then he's moved on to a lot of documentaries and stuff. I haven't really watched much of the documentaries, so you'll forgive me for not commenting on that. So while we're at it, why don't we play some more music from Beach Volley? I just thought it was a really nice game. Have a listen and hope you enjoy. Okay, just a quick correction. Earlier I said Ocean. I thought this was one of the earlier Ocean games. It was actually created a lot earlier in the 1980s, I think in 1984. And essentially since then... Oh, yes, the company's early releases in 1984. And since then they were acquired by Infogrames in the mid-90s. So that's how it goes. It's a sad thing, but a lot of these promising game development companies end up getting swallowed by larger ones. It almost seems like this great big game of Pac-Man or Kirby is going on, where the big ones just get bigger and able to swallow up everything else. Actually, wait, that's more like Osmos. The game Osmos, that's where you get bigger and you become easier able to swallow up smaller things and stuff. So, and then eventually it leads to only bigger things being, which is kind of a pity. And then the market shifts and then small ones become big again and the whole cycle starts all over again. You know, I don't know. Maybe sometimes I like to talk and sometimes I like to play music. Why don't I just play another track from Beach Volley? I know I'm playing a lot of music from this game. That was Bahamas, Volley 3 and Sydney, as apparently the file names of the game have it down as. And you know, one thing when you're young and you're playing, that certain jingles get seared into your head and everything. And I think two of the jingles from this game that got seared into my head were the sounds when you had a victory and the sounds when you got a defeat. I think that when the one where you were defeated had this nice little icon where you look all grumpy and had this very nice, silly, whimsical tune to it. Whereas, you know, the victory theme was all... So, you know, it's kind of funny, these themes really matter a lot. In fact, when I was developing my game Algebra Balance, I tried to make sure you had a good winning thing. But you know what? Why don't I just play the track for you now? For instance, the defeated jingle, you know, if you lost, it sounded like this. And so that was then. But of course, if you had the balls, literally, because it's a volleyball game, see, you would get this one. It's funny how little tunes like that become very iconic. So, as you can say, Beach Volley, a nice fun game. It could be very hard. I'm not sure if I ever fully made it the full way through the game, unfortunately. Good sense of humor, good graphics, good people behind it, and I just enjoyed the game when I was a kid, and haven't played in a while, but it still was a good track to play. All right, I'm going to shift gears now, genres and everything, into moving from a game that was released a while back to a game that was released fairly recently. The game I'm talking about is called Gunpoint. It was released, an indie game recently. It was made by Tom Francis, and the music I'm about to play is by Ryan Ike. It is called Security, Circuitry and You. And let me just say that all those three things play a large role in the video game itself. Have a listen and hope you enjoy. So, a very nice kind of like noir-esque theme going on there. That was Security, Circuitry and You from Ryan Ike from the game Gunpoint by Tom Francis. Tom Francis basically made this game. Gunpoint was his first game, and it's actually a pretty cool game. Essentially, there's kind of a noir thing going on. You get a side view kind of cross section of a building, and you move around the building trying to get to an objective, which is usually steal something, hack something, or just retrieve something. You basically have to get to one point in the building, then get out and escape, hopefully without being seen because of the guards who are patrolling the area. It's kind of like a stealth espionage game, and it's pretty fun at that. But there are a couple of things that make it different. First up, you can jump really high. Cool. Second of all, while there is a gun certainly accessible, you can go through the whole game without really using it, or at least firing it, because you can actually hold people up with it. And the other thing about it is you can hack circuitry to do pretty much anything in the game, and this is where a lot of fun comes down. Buildings are equipped with motion sensing alarms, camera alarms, specific doors that open, all this sort of stuff. And the fun part of it is that you can actually rewire things without even going near them. When you press a certain button, suddenly the mode changes. Suddenly, for instance, you can just see how everything's interlinked. You can see how a light switch is linked with a light. You can see how a camera is linked with an alarm. You can see how all these trap doors and all these doors are linked with other things. And this is where things get a little crazy. You can rewire them. So take, for instance, a door that won't open on you. Well, you can't really kick it down because that upgrade isn't available to the last level of the game. But what you can do is actually rewire it so that a light switch starts opening the door. So you switch the mode, rewire the light switch to the door, then go back, flip the light switch, and suddenly the door opens. It gets more fun. For instance, sometimes there might be two doors and you can get through one but you can't get through the other, or you need to have one closed at the same time. So what you can do is there might be a security guard going back and forth on the room upstairs, and he keeps going through a motion sensor. So you click the motion sensor to the door, and then every time the guard goes through the motion sensor, the door opens. And then you can flip a light switch so that it opens the other door and everything. And it gets even more fun. For instance, there are also elevators in this game. You can get a light switch to trigger the elevator call button so that the elevator comes. But then you can trigger it so that once the elevator arrives, it sends out another signal. So you could link that to the call button downstairs and then link that way upwards. So what you end up getting to is a round table thing where the elevator reaching its floor causes the call button for another lift to get called. So the lift goes up to that one, and then it triggers another thing that calls the lift going back and down again. So essentially you can set up all these repetitive, complicated and messy situations whereby one thing triggers another thing, and you can end up with weird situations where suddenly the light go out, the person tries to actually, flip a light switch, and in doing so they open a random door somewhere and they turn it down again. So there's all this very complex web of interaction that you can get going, and that's what makes the game a lot of fun. Sometimes you just are trying to get the lights out and sneak past, and then you can jump up and crawl over it, but you're also trying to just figure out what system of linking will actually manage to get you to open the doors that you want to open it and get to the points that you want to get to. So that's pretty cool as well. If there's one thing about the game, though, is I feel that this great mechanic doesn't quite get exploited. I really hate to criticize a game if it's too short, largely because sometimes games get unnecessarily padded, and I talk about Far Cry, the original Far Cry, in this manner. It could have been a really nice short game, but to pad it they added in this level that kind of wasn't that really work well with the rest of the game. So the idea is I don't think the game should be much longer than they need to be. Thing is, with Gunpoint, I feel like I've gone through the game and I still feel there are more combinations and interesting things you can do. Fortunately speaking, the game both has level editing tools and a lot of community who are making their own levels for this game. So there are ways of getting more info on the game, and that's cool and everything. It's like the original Doom, of course, or any sort of modding community where a lot of the gamers and users end up creating their own content for the game, and that's always a really cool thing. There's a bit more I could talk about, but before I do, I think I'm going to play another track from the game. This one is called Halls and Footfalls. It is also by the same composer. As I said, it is from Gunpoint. So have a listen and hope you enjoy. And that was the Cold Halls and Footfalls by Ryan Ike from the game Gunpoint by Tom Francis. There are some good tunes there, and also a lot of them actually have alternative themes as well. One of the nice things about the game is that when you switch from regular jumping around, hanging off roofs, climbing walls sort of mode to actually, cross-link, try to wire and hack everything mode, the music changes slightly to a more electric version, which is actually pretty cool and gives a nice transition. I decided not to play one of those tracks full length here, but if you want to listen to one of the soundtrack for Gunpoint, it is available online on Bandcamp and has got a lot of great tracks for it. One other thing I like about Gunpoint is the plot story. There's kind of like these they look like instant chat messages things, but they're all these little plots between levels, and they're kind of funny, and you get to choose a little about what you say, and it all evolves. One thing I find about the plot is it's actually kind of twisted and involved. At one point, a guy hires you in order to investigate your own break-ins, which gets kind of convoluted. Another time, you're hired to actually investigate, whether the accusations against someone, but the thing is, you're also involved in the same investigation. So you're trying to investigate a murder where you're also a suspect, but at the same time, you don't necessarily want people knowing that you're a suspect because that will get very, very creepy. And at the same time, you've got something to hide, so you don't want anyone knowing that you got something to hide. And it all just gets very nice and twisted and stuff. Okay, I'm going to leave you with one last theme from the game. It is the main theme of the game. It is called Melancholia, and is by John Robert Matz, a composer of both game music and film music. And I think it's a nice tune, and with that, I shall leave you all. So, thank you all very much for listening. This has been David Collins with BitNote. Have a listen, hope you enjoy, and thank you for listening.